Welcome to Be Now for Tuesday, December 13th. My name is Don McLeod, and as usual, I'm joined by Fazel Khan. Faz, how's it going today?
I'm very cold, Don. It was a very cold day this morning. -9. That's not right.
It's wintertime. Get used to it. Suck it up. All right.
And I dressed, I had to go out this afternoon, and I dressed for -9, and it was actually very nice. So it's one of those days when the sun's out, it warms up.
Yeah, when the sun's out, it's actually gorgeous, right? That's a great thing about sunshine in the winter. In the winter time, it's nice and toasty. So, all right, enough of the weather. Let's get to what do we got going on for December 13th.
Okay, so we got a interesting agenda. So we're going to talk about the mosque proposal. That was the promo we had that we put out. Interesting meeting last night.
Yep.
We'll also talk about the by-election that happened in Mississauga Lakeshore yesterday. And then we have Councillor Rowena Santos on as well. And just to let everybody know, she is my favorite councillor. But we're starting a segment this week called The Sizzler. And she doesn't know this, but she's the first guest on that segment. I have done work with Councillor Santos, so I just want to make everybody aware of that. But she doesn't know what questions we're asking. And in fact, you're going to be asking the questions, right, Don?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then we're also going to be talking. We have a scene as seen on social segment. Viewer discretion is advised on that one, and Don will get into that, and then we'll talk about what's happening next week. So the mosque proposal. I'm going to put a slide up here, Don.
Yep.
I don't know. Did you tune into the meeting last night?
No, I know it started late and went to 4 a.m, which is ridiculous. There was 600 plus delegation people delegating. They had to cut down from 5-minute delegation to 2-minute delegation to fit them all in. In fact, there was more people delegating on this than there was the HMLRT.
Yeah, and this is the the main floor of City Hall. I guess they expected a lot of people, not as much, because when I checked the agenda, I think 200 people were scheduled to delegate. When the meeting started, they said 400. So I guess city staff knew that and then set up the main floor downstairs to handle it. And then by the end of it, I went to bed at 11:30, turned it off because they weren't even at 100 by that point. They said there were 600 delegates. So it's an amazing democratic show of that our city's working and people are finding out about whatever the issue is. Unfortunately, it was because of a mosque, and so people were either in favor or not in favor for a variety of reasons. Let me quickly show you the actual location of where this mosque is. This is a Google map, but that's Highway 50 on the right side of the red dot in the center, and then what's that, Clark Way? So I don't really know that part of the city as
well.
Much
it's closer to Vaughan. I mean, you go up Highway 50, you're going to hit Bolton, but that's the northern part, basically. It's up in Ward 9 and 10. There's a lot of, along that Highway 50 has been developed like crazy over the last 10 years. There's a lot of warehouses on basically the eastern side of Highway 50, and on the west, you can see that there's a whole bunch of houses. But what you don't see down a little bit lower, there's a Gurdwara down there, and I think there's a temple as well.
The Hindu temple, yeah. So it is, I was actually surprised when I looked at that site because it is a woodlot, and those trees are there. You can see an opening there. So let me show you what is planned there. So the mosque proposal is on the kind of the bottom half of that site. So I don't know who owns the top half, and so it looks like this. And so the proposal is to keep half of the property a woodlot. So if we go back to this, so where that opening is where that mosque is. So about a quarter of the lot would still would be developed, and the other 3/4 for now, anyways, would be a woodlot. The issue, and this is the only legitimate issue I heard last night, was parking, because there's only 94 parking spots, and if you know anybody that's Muslim, 94 spots at a mosque is nowhere near enough for those few times of the year. Actually, even Fridays. Friday is the big day in the Muslim in the week. It's not enough, and so that's something that the Barrack, the Brampton and Region Islamic Center, which is what it's called, the group, will have to, I think, address because it is a big issue. 94 is not enough, which means the overflow is going to go back on the street.
Well, so there's no public transit up Highway 50 either.
There's no public transit. Well,
Well,
not enough
that's a busy
anyways.
highway. Highway 50 is transport trucks heading north into Brampton, Bolton, and the warehouses up along that whole area that's been built up. So it's a
Yeah.
difficult scenario, but at the same time, like I said, you have Gurdwara and you have a temple just south of that in the lower bottom center section there. There's two temples, or one temple and a Gurdwara up around that area. So, I mean, parking is a situation where there's a lot of temples that have that same situation right now.
Yeah, and so if you look at the demographics of the people that came out, it's I can say this, Don, you can't. It was a bunch of brown people, and it was like the people in favor who I didn't hear much of because they were in the latter end of the delegations, were in favor of it, and the people who weren't in favor of it. Unfortunately, it seemed like it was from one specific group, so it's unfortunate to see that kind of.
Well, it's funny. I remember years ago. Remember Kevin Jackal, the one that basically Rebel News and ran for Mississauga mayor. There was a mosque being planned in Mississauga, and this is just before he ran against Bonnie in the election. And it was a big kerfuffle, and it was all basically, his clan group was all white people talking about there's going to be congestions on the road, there's going to be parking, there's going to be situations with the kids. All these NIMBYism things came forward, and then there's a lot of that I heard basically at this when they're talking about a mosque. So, religious temples, whether it be a church, a Gurdwara, a mosque or anything, it seems to have the same thing that people, are always going to come up with these same things instead of saying, well, we don't want these people here.
Well, it also takes away from the legitimate concerns, which is parking and traffic. Those are legitimate concerns. And when the argument goes to everything, none of it gets addressed. And then, when the site is built, there's traffic and there's parking concerns. So I hope it gets resolved, because the last thing we want to see is any kind of accident or disputes after the fact. And, most of these Muslim organizations, and I know how they operate, it's going to be a while before that's built. They've got to raise the funds. I think they were raising funds for this proposal. They still have to raise funds for the development. And there's
the Gurdwaras do the same thing. I know the one basically, the Gurdwara at corner, what is it, Sandalwood and Dixie. I mean, that took how many years to build, and they're still building at this point in time. But originally the neighbors were complaining across the road that it was partially built, there was garbage, blah 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 blah. So you already have these things on a regular basis, whether it be a Muslim temple or a Gurdwara.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes forward. This is part of the process. You got to have this public session. So this is months away before any decision is made, I believe. Okay, next topic, Don, is the by-election in Mississauga Lakeshore yesterday. What did you think of the results there?
Yep. D'Souza, a recycled provincial Liberal, got elected for the federal Liberals.
Yes, I saw a lot of support for Charles Sousa. I was going to say D'Souza, Charles Sousa, from the Brampton MPs, and you can see Shafqat Ali in the far right on this photograph. They were all down there campaigning for Charles. I didn't see any level of support for Ron Scheisner, who was running for PP.
Well, that was a whole bunch of people were mentioning that, and then because PP didn't show up at all. I mean, Justin Trudeau didn't show up, but yes, our 5 MPs were down there campaigning with Charles Sousa as well. So they basically said, all hands on deck. We need this riding. Basically, it wasn't a good show for PP to not show up and support one of his candidates, or even any high-profile conservative to actually come down and support Ron Chisner. Ron Chisner, we know. I mean, he was an ex-police officer, the guns and gangs.
No, he's still a police officer in Peel, Don.
Hey?
He still is a police officer.
Oh, he still is at this point in time? Okay. Well,
he was in Toronto. That's how we met him, through the Neighborhood Watch
program. Guns and gangs, and he was about, he was
then he
the
moved
outreach.
To Peel. So he's a Peel police officer. Yeah. And
he
is originally from Brampton.
Yeah, and he was doing the outreach to young kids and stuff like that, which, a great story. I mean, I have nothing against him, but,
Okay. All right, so that was interesting, actually. I don't know if it's a bellwether for what's going to happen in the next federal election, but it's interesting. All right, so the next segment, Don, so I told everybody we have a new. It's called the Sizzle segment. I even have an intro I created for it.
Oh, really?
I wanted to call this whole thing we're doing, Don, instead of the Be Now show on Tuesday with Don. I wanted to call it the Sizzler from day one. And I got a lot of pushback from you, and then Michael Charbon was also part of that conversation. Nobody wanted me to call that, but so I took it, and I'm going to call this segment the Sizzler because we want to fry the guests, right? I actually was thinking of calling it the Deep Fryer, and
that's a good promo to get people to come on. Yeah, we're gonna fry them. Yeah, that's a good intro.
So I really expect you to ask the hard questions.
Okay, I'm gonna ask. I'll ask her a PIN number or something like that. That's a hard one to answer.
Here we go. Here's the promo.
Okay. Ooh. Teflon. Eh?
All right.
Wow.
Okay, welcome, Councillor Santos. I'm going to put you in the middle here.
There you go.
Hi. Hey,
how are you doing, Councillor?
I'm good. I guess I'm now part of the Sizzler segment.
The Sizzler segment. You're the first guest on the Sizzler segment. That's a tough one.
I'm honored.
And this might be the first and last Sizzler segment. We'll see.
Pretty well. So thank you for joining us, Councillor. You got the second term. You got reelected. Congratulations on that. We haven't talked to you since then, but congratulations on being reelected as a city councilor, but now you're regional councilor for Ward 1 and 5.
Indeed, and happy to be back. Very happy to be back. Very happy the election and the campaign is over, and incredibly pleased with the council that we have. And we've already rolled up our sleeves and been doing some tremendous work over the past month.
Well, to start it off, I want to ask you about the situation last night going to 4 a.m. Do you think that was a little bit too much freedom of democracy and speech? Do you think 600 people delegating in council is a little bit over the top?
I think that we always welcome engagement from the public. And although our voter turnout in the past election was only 25%, which was pretty abysmal, it's actually really nice to see that certain issues allow for more democracy and people to engage with the city of Brampton. And quite frankly, I think that Councillor Paleshi did an amazing job to manage and chair that meeting last night until 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm thinking it's probably going to meet the Guinness Book of Brampton records when it comes to latest and longest meetings and most number of delegations.
During your time there, what was your takeaway in regards to the situation in the mosque there? What was the main complaint against people having the mosque?
Yeah, and I think Faz put it right earlier. I was there in person for a bit, and then I had to come home to take care of Lennon and make sure he was not home alone while he was sleeping. So I was online for the entire thing until 4 o'clock in the morning. And in terms of most comments, so there was a definite divide between those who supported, those who did not. The common concerns were about traffic and parking and congestion and the trees. And, that was the common opposition arguments to it. And the support, quite frankly, the arguments for support were very compelling. It's a place of worship, and the community, the Muslim community in particular, had very strong support arguments to say, we don't have a mosque out here. My kids don't have an opportunity to pray, and I want to teach them our culture and the faith. And there's a mandir down the road. There's a gurdwara. There are churches on almost every corner, especially in downtown Brampton, that's for sure. And why is it that the Muslim community can't have their own place of worship in the northeast corner? So it was very compelling.
Yeah, I think that's a mainstay. Basically, religious freedom in Canada is something that we basically champion. I think it's something that has to be championed. A lot of people masked their hatred and their phobias and fears and everything else with a lot of arguments against having this, that, and the next thing. But if you can have a church on one corner and a gurdwara temple, there's no reason to say you can't have a mosque, as long as it's basically you're practicing your religion. Me personally, I don't believe in religion, but other people do. And,
And so be it. And
Yep.
and you know, all the work that I've done with the National Canadian Council of Muslims and the anti-Islamophobia things that we did on council with Mayor Patrick Brown, those were pretty significant you know, signals to the community in terms of where we stand when it comes to Islamophobia.
Right. So let's go into your next thing. You put a motion. You have been busy, I know, since council reconvened. One of the motions was to amend the sign bylaw in Brampton. Can you tell us a little bit about this in regards to the next election, whether it be provincial and or federal and municipal and signs?
If I can jump in, basically, I think the question he's trying to ask you, Councillor Santos, is why are you trying to burn the Charter of Rights and Freedom in Canada?
Thanks, Faz. We didn't call this the Sizzler section for nothing. No, so indeed we are not trying to, you know, burn the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. This is not a new topic. Every single election, whether it's federal, municipal, or provincial, we always get so many complaints from our residents and small businesses and other property owners across the city about illegal signs that are placed on private property, on public property. And we brought this topic up in the last term of council as well. In fact, the report that was referenced in this motion was from a report last council when staff brought forward recommendations and ideas on how to amend the sign bylaw in order not to infringe on the charter, but also deal with the sign wars and proliferation of illegal signs during the election periods. People are really frustrated. It's bad for the environment. It's incredibly costly. And as we see from the voter turnout and also the results, they didn't really garner that much support for voter turnout or for candidates in general. We had mayoral candidates with many illegal signs everywhere, but they didn't win. They didn't come close to winning.
Good old Bob. That was Bob. Bob had tons of signs. We mentioned that in one of the shows that every corner had a Bob sign. What do you say to the people that say, you know what, that gives the incumbent basically a leg up? There's no way for people running against the incumbent to have a same footing as a councillor, and signs make this happen. What do you say to that?
The reality is that incumbents always have a leg up when it comes to any sort of election, especially in municipal elections. And incumbents, even with signs, also have a leg up because we have a storage room full of signs that can easily be reused. And the cost of signs, especially because of supply chain issues in this election, were really, really expensive. We're talking almost double the cost from the previous election in 2018. So if you're a candidate going up against an incumbent, there's already a huge barrier of entry when it comes to campaign signs.
So Justin is asking a good question here, right? He's talking about, you know, are we able to control provincial and federal election signs?
Yeah, and Justin, nice to see you. Thanks for your question. Yes, because under the legislation, the municipal government has jurisdiction over the placement as well as the regulation over signs when it comes to elections. So even the provincial and federal candidates, when they were violating municipal bylaws, it was the municipal government, Brampton, that was issuing the invoices and tickets and fines and expecting the various candidates from those elections to actually pay them. So we are the regulators and enforcers when it comes to sign restrictions, placements, etc.
So before we get to Chris Drew, I wanted to ask you basically in regards to the fines. The fines, you are pursuing fines against, it was a record number of fines from what I understand. What was the total number of fines in regards to sign, like during the whole election campaign?
Yeah. So in this municipal election, I believe is between $150,000 and $160,000 worth of invoices sent to candidates for illegal signage, which is significant. And the cost for a bylaw officer to deal with an illegal sign is $125 to $130 per sign.
Right. So that's a lot of people when they were talking about, well, why should we ban signs? A lot of people didn't mention that basically bylaw officers have to go to court. It's their time. They have to bring evidence. There's all sorts of, picture taking of what's going on. Let me ask you, how many sign violations did you have, Councillor?
I asked that question after we did all of this. So I got 18.
18.
18.
Okay, who is the highest? And I think Faz and I can know. We know that. Come on, tell
you
us
know
who
the highest was. I can't say who, but you know.
Good old Bobby, I bet.
Okay, so we do have a question now from Chris. Let's put it on the screen. Chris, this is called a sizzler, by the way. You basically just
that's a softball. It's like there's no any comment on the Canadian leading Brampton trend. Now it's like that's not a question that's going to be really, really hard and tough on Rowena.
So I have a tough transit question. When are we? Well, it's not tough. When is the entire fleet going to be battery powered?
So I don't know the exact year off the top of my head, but we will be the first electrified bus fleet in the country. We certainly are the first ones who have implemented various charging stations and investing in the infrastructure, etc. And with the electrification of our bus fleet, we actually have a motion coming to council tomorrow to see how we could turn that leading edge into a revenue generating opportunity when it comes to carbon credits. So I'm super excited about that as well.
Oh, that's an excellent idea.
So we talked to
Chris's question back on because he said it's not softball.
That's pretty softball. I'm sorry, but there's no question there. It's just Brampton leading transit ridership. Yeah, we know Brampton Transit has increasing ridership. What about we talked to Patrick Brown about the tunnel option for the HLRT going through. What is happening with that?
We continue to advocate, and I know I do agree with Chris. That's not a softball question, so I'm going to answer it and then talk about what's happening with the HMLRT. We need our fair share when it comes to Brampton Transit. I just came from FCM in Ottawa last week. We spoke a lot about transit infrastructure, and over again in Ottawa, while we were giving examples, I was talking about how Brampton is at 115% in terms of growth ridership pre-COVID levels. And we are leading when it comes to transit, but we do not get a half as much or nearly as much as Hamilton, Mississauga, or Toronto. And so we continue to fight. Obviously, Chris knows that, for our fair share of transit support in dollars, which includes the HMLRT. In terms of the federal support, we did get a nod in terms of the tunnel option. And now we're just waiting for the province to step in to give us the funding as well. And I think with all of Bill 23 and the growth that's happening around transit hubs and talk around all-day two-way go, we're going to get there, because they're going to need that LRT to come downtown Brampton to actually deal with all of that growth around the transit hub.
Well, they've been talking about the two-way all-day go on the weekends and everything else for I don't know how many years. I've heard that like at least for the last two elections and then before with Kathleen Wynne. So, it's nice to talk, but it's even better to have action. So as long as the advocacy is still there, I know Brampton ridership is up. It seems to be growing faster than any other city, large city in Canada or even Ontario. So that's something, BRT is something that we could talk about as well going forward. We'll have you back because, obviously these things are not going away. And, being in the FCM, these are topics that are span across municipalities. And obviously everyone's looking for coin in their pocket, but there's only so much money that can be allocated. So, it was the fourth or fifth largest city in Ontario, ninth largest in Canada.
And fastest growing big city in the country.
Yeah, and it's fastest growing as well. Want to talk quickly about the fireworks ban?
Sizzle.
Well, so the arguments I've seen online with that is, well,
how are you going to enforce?
A ban is is like taking a sledgehammer to a problem. It's like an easy solution. Just ban it. What do you have to say to that?
So I, as chair of legislative services now, together with Vice Chair Councillor Pleshy, we met with the acting commissioner of legislative services, Paul Morrison, and we had a conversation with him just yesterday talking about what we're going to do to enforce this new ban on fireworks. And he said that him and his team are coming up with a plan. and they're going to be presenting that plan in terms of how to deal with it during the budget process. So I think with the ban will also come with investments into more bylaw enforcement officers. But to be perfectly honest with you, we do need more support in bylaw enforcement, because we have property standards to deal with as well, sign issues to deal with as well, many different enforcement issues that residents expect us to act on.
I think Don has been advocating for a snitch line.
We're gonna get one.
Yeah, there you go. I advocate it. Now, the thing is, Faz has been advocating to ban leaf blowers. That's his big thing. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So I haven't done anything, so we can't really ask the councillor, but that is my number one goal for the next 4 years is to, I'm going to start in my neighborhood, Don. It won't be a ban. It's going to be an ask. So Councillor Santos is here. She went through the neighborhood watch tribulations with us. She was part of the decision to fund our pilot and then to kind of go in a different direction. And we've eventually gotten over that, Don. But I still have a passion for my neighborhood. So I'm starting a community group for just my neighborhood, the 800 homes that make it up. And so I'm going to, as part of it, as I'm going to ask people not to hire lawn care companies that are going to use gas-powered leaf blowers.
Only the rich neighborhoods can do that. The poor neighborhoods don't hire people to do their lawns. They do it themselves, Faz.
You know what? This is a huge business opportunity for Lennon, who actually went door to door asking neighbors to rake their leaves.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So there you go, Don.
We'll send Lennon. We'll send Lennon instead of people doing leaf blowers. We'll send Lennon.
We have to guilt people into doing the right thing.
All right. Okay. So you know what? The other thing, just before we go, Councillor, I know that the city is collecting non-perishable goods, toys, for their drive for the Knights Table, to give to the Knights Table, whether it be non-perishable goods and toys. That goes on till the 16th, which is this Friday. So you can drop them off at City Hall. I think the Brampton Library locations, as well as some rec centers. So that's going on, and everything goes to the Knights Table, as far as I remember. Is that correct, Councillor? Knights
Table or regeneration, or both. But give generously this holiday season. There are a lot of families who are struggling because of inflation and various costs, food prices, etc. So please give. Please give.
Okay.
So there's a final question before we let you go, Councillor, from Ivan Macri about Latino nightclub in Brampton. Are your thoughts on something like that?
When does it open? I'm there. I got my dancing shoes ready, Ivan. You know that. I'm ready.
Well, that's a funny thing you mentioned dancing shoes, because that's part of our segment later on today.
I think Lot 25 through World of Jazz Fest and music in downtown, they had a salsa night and it was packed. But
well, don't forget, here's something in downtown Toronto. They do it on the Danforth, but I can't remember what location it is in downtown Toronto. But they have a Latino dance night in the streets. They close off the streets, and then they have the whole Latino thing going on with the salsa and everything else. So that's something that maybe you can. There's tons of opportunities in downtown Brampton in the summertime that I think the city has an opportunity to expand on. So
you want to know a secret?
We always want to know secrets, Councillor.
Okay, so the general manager of Transit, Alex Milojevic, he is a ballroom dancer.
Oh, really?
And so I said to him, we're going to have in Garden Square at some point this term, we're going to have a Dancing with the Stars, and Alex Milojevic will be one of the people. And I'm hoping to do it as well. My favorite is Argentine tango. So if you talk to,
I want to be a judge.
He's not just all about transit, Chris Drew. He's also about the cha-cha, the merengue, the mambo, you name it.
You haven't seen me dance yet.
You know who I saw dance? Nikki Cedrone.
No way.
No, I think you saw Elaine from Seinfeld.
That was Elaine.
Oh yeah, that was a funny dance.
Anyway,
okay.
Thank you, Councillor, for joining us. I'm sure that we'll have you back in the future. There's 4 more years of council decisions. So it was, it was kind of half sizzle. We didn't really want to grill you too bad on the first episode.
You didn't do any sizzle, Don. I did all the sizzling.
Oh, that was a sizzle? Come on. That was like, come on.
Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks, Rowena.
Okay, Don, we just went over the 30-minute mark.
We're close. We're close. We got just enough.
Okay, so it's time for our scene on social. You want to set this up?
Yeah, you know what? We saw this, and it was once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like if you have small children, you might want to tell them to go away, do something else, because, as I said, it's viewer discretion advised. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. So I'm just giving you fair warning. So, Faz, you ready? You want to tee this one up?
Here we go.
Unbelievable. Was that like, you can't get that out of your mind. Once you see that, it's like it's.
Did you want to see it again? Did you want to see it?
Uchi mama. Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki Cedrone.
That's one person that will not be doing the ballroom dancing, right? That Rowena talked about. There's no way that's going to happen.
Okay, Don. And so next week, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we're going to have actually Graham McGregor, which is the MPP for Brampton North. He's agreed to come on and talk about some issues going forward that's happening in Brampton North and I guess provincial. So he'll be on a sizzle episode.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep it. I think the sizzler. What did I call it? The sizzler.
Now you forgot what you called it.
Sizzler segment or the sizzle segment? Anyways, so I think we're gonna keep it. We might modify it a little bit, a little more sizzle.
Right, okay, so we're gonna make changes actually going forward. We're gonna send out invitations to neighborhood groups. If you got a neighborhood group and you want to come on and talk about situations, getting the Seinfeld vibes is right. I don't know who did it worse, Elaine Bennis or Nikki Cedrone. So yes, neighborhood groups, you want to come on and talk about what's going on in your neighborhood. What is, if there's a special event, if there's a drive, a toy drive, anything going on, you can always contact myself or Fazelle. And we'll see about promoting your event or talking to you on camera, just like we did with Rowena Santos.
Yeah, and so we probably are not going to be taking a break over the holidays, right? Because if you look at the Tuesdays, it's the 20th, the 27th, the 3rd. None of those are holidays, so we're going to keep the show going. And by early January, we're hoping to have the Be Now website kind of set up to support what Don was just talking about, right? We really wanted to support all the events happening in the city. Like there was Ivan was mentioning about a Latino nightclub and things like that. Before we actually get these physical spaces, we probably will get a lot of events happening. And so we want to support that. We want to really do our part to make this city vibrant and, so you don't have to leave the city necessarily, although, there's a lot around the GTA. But why not support Brampton and Brampton organizations as much as we can?
And I see that the city rinks are all open. So
some of them, Don, 3 of them. Gage
them?
Park and Mount Pleasant and Chinguacousy. Yeah.
Okay. What about Gore Meadows?
I'm not sure if it's open yet.
Okay.
But today, those 3 opened. Yep.
All right, because that's a covered one. That one should be probably open because don't they have underwater like freezing and stuff like that?
No idea, Don. No idea.
Oh, you're pretty useless when it comes to information. That's your next task. Find that out for next week.
I see a chat here. It's open. Gore Meadows is open.
Okay, good enough. All right. So listen, we'll see you next week. We'll talk to Graham McGregor and anything else going on in the city. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.